So, when you hear the phrase breaking the silence, what does it make you think and feel?
Using your voice and not being afraid to use your voice, especially in the world of sports. I think I mean, as a coach and as a former footballer, I think there's a lot of times that you just kind of go on with things and accept things as they are. And I think that most most part of the problem of the system sometimes is because we do accept it and we keep going without kind of sharing and being vulnerable about our experiences and sometimes we don't know that a lot of people would really be thinking and kind of had been gone through the same experience. So I think as people that are in the industry, I think it's very important sometimes to use our voice, whatever it is, to show what's been going on in our heads or in our experiences to make it a better environment for people around.
I mean, absolutely, and I agree with you because a lot of just taking this away from football for just a very brief moment, everyone in any industry in every capacity, there are so many people that will not speak out. For whatever their reasons are, they just will not speak out. And I think we don't realize as humans how many people are also suffering
Mhm,
internally. Everything externally might look wonderful, but
mhm,
internally, obviously, is where you're suffering. And it's definitely finding the whatever it is, the acceptance or the courage, and the being able to be vulnerable to speak out.
exactly. And I think it takes a lot of confidence also. I mean, for me as a female, I think sometimes it's even harder because yeah, it's just how the world is sometimes. And so for me, I think I think the last 2, 3 years it was a big growth in that aspect where I finally was able to really feel comfortable speaking out and fighting for the things that I think they're not, right for the people and also use my role or my confidence sometimes to actually advocate for others that might not have that yet. Because we all have been there. I think it takes a long time, and I'm not even there yet. But like and I don't think I'm ever going to be the super confident person. But I do think that um, the more experiences that you have, the more things that you go through, especially the hard things that you go through, the more that you build that tough skin to actually know, I'm not gonna, I don't want to go through that again. I'm not gonna allow people to actually define this for myself. So, yeah, so I think that's that confidence side and being okay going through tough experiences because they are the ones that actually will define us and will build that tough skin to eventually be stronger.
Exactly. And life isn't linear, it doesn't go in a straight line. It also, you know, depending on wherever you are on your journey, it's not just gonna, yes, it will get better, but it won't just be a continuous journey of happiness and getting better all the time, every day. Things are going to happen in life, change is going to
Yeah.
happen. And even if we don't want these bad, negative, sad, whatever they are, things to happen in life, it's life. And yes, it's learning to, I guess, yes, be okay, but it's learning how to handle situations or be okay with situations or get through situations, learning your
Mm.
coping mechanisms and ways you can speak out. And so, with all of this in mind, in your experience in football,
Mhm.
how have you found this to be the case?
Yeah, I think I've kind of been through, I mean, I left home when I was 18, so I kind of had to as a young uh, girl in America, and I knew that if I didn't do it, nobody was going to do it for me because I didn't want to go back to Brazil. I didn't want to go back to kind of, unfortunately, Brazil is the most beautiful place in the world, but for women in sports, sometimes it's quite tough, especially I wanted to be able to study and play at the same time. So almost going through that and going, through my years playing professional and then playing college, university, and then semi-pro in the US. Um, and being through a lot of the system, how the system works, and being a female in the system, that sometimes is quite tough. Um, but at the same time, I've learned how to also not use that narrative as a woman, because sometimes it's very easy to go, maybe they're treating me like that because I am a woman. But sometimes it's not the case. Sometimes it's our maybe lack of confidence, or, we're not able to really see how we can improve as coaches and stuff like that. So I've been through some experiences in different organizations that it really was tough for me mentally, to the point that I had a huge breakdown when I was 30, 31, and about 2, 3 years ago, where I had the worst panic attack, had to go to the hospital, and it was just everything was building up, and I felt like it was time for me to like put an end to it. And unfortunately, there's a lot of institutions that would, it's almost like you have to do everything for the institution, but you cannot be yourself, or you cannot put yourself out there, show your work and stuff like that. And quite toxic in a lot of ways. And even institutions that I was not paid for the work that I was doing, and it was fine for them to, and we do it because we love, and especially when we are passionate and it's our dream. But then that came to a point that I'm like, okay, it's enough. And I built something on the side that would allow me to actually, confront those situations without thinking I might not have a room and a roof around me, but like, because I was able to like build a plan A, plan B, build my business around different projects. So then I could go, I can speak up, because if something happens, I don't need them. Like, I don't need those people that would treat me bad. And I'm going to use my voice. I'm going to say what's wrong, and I'm going to leave my legacy there for the people that are coming behind me. So yeah, so I think it's definitely come from a place of being through and feeling and going in like very down to that rabbit hole where you just feel not valued. You feel like all your efforts are just kind of, it was a waste. And then you realize, why are you being defined by those institutions or those people? So then now I'm way more vocal about things, and I put my terms, and I say, if I see something that's not going right, I would tell people. And if they think it's not the right thing to do, or they feel like it's not, then it's time for me to walk away and not be with that organization or with the people that don't align with my values.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that's definitely, I think people need to be able to find that voice within them, especially if they've been gone through a lot of things in the industry, because that's the only way things are going to move forward in a better direction. Is the more people that are going to speak up and have each other's back. I think that's how it's going to be.
Of course, because it's not being defined by the institution or by somebody else telling you that you can't say something, you shouldn't speak out.
Mm.
Because the more times you feel that way, or the more times even someone says it, the less you are going to speak out, because you're going to lose your
Yeah.
confidence. You're going to start doubting yourself. You're going to start thinking, well, if I do speak out, or whatever it might be, something bad's going to happen to me. I might lose my job. I might not get whatever it is that I want because I've said something that maybe someone's not happy with. But if it's not aligning with your values, if it's making you inside feel uncomfortable, if it's making you inside feel uncomfortable, then that is your intuition and your gut telling you that this is not okay. And actually, if you flip it, you have to then speak out, and you have to do the said thing. And there's a fine line though. There's
Mm.
a really fine line of learning in yourself what you feel you are capable of doing, and not being afraid to have the confidence, whoever you are, whatever gender you are, but not being able to have the confidence to say, I'm going to set a boundary, or I'm going to speak out, or okay, if I do this thing and it might, that person might get angry or upset with me, I'm going to have to take it, because this is my boundary and this is me doing me. And it's interesting because once you start to do those, you start to notice a change in yourself, and you're like, whoa, who is this
Exactly.
person?
Yeah. And it gives you even more confidence to keep doing. And I think it's a great thing that you say there. And I think sometimes it's important to also you find some allies that and support system to actually go through that together. Because I've had so many amazing mentors that I kind of would check in and say, this is what's happening. You think that's right? And some people in my support system would also be almost victims of the system, and sometimes they'd be like, yeah, just how it is. I'm like, so you have to be kind of careful because a lot of times when you have mentors and you have support system, everything they say, it's like you really listen, right? But I think you have to also be listening to your intuition. And if it doesn't feel right, then you have to be able to challenge that. So I think having the ally and support system and people that also don't think the way you think, because I think sometimes we tend to be biased towards, the people that are going to say, yes, this is not right. So I've tried in all my career to have those diverse set of people where there's the very like disruptors, change makers that are gonna say things to me, I'm gonna love it, and it's gonna be hard to get to that because I'm not there yet. But there's also the people that are still kind of accepting the system. So you have to kind of have a very big balance on and be able to really remove your biases a little bit, because that happens very, very often.
Because not everyone around you is going to be in the same place you are. Some people might already be ahead of their, whether it's a healing journey or whatever it might be, some people might be ahead, and
Yeah,
some people might not even be at the point where they're even accepting it. So,
exactly.
and if you do come across someone that might, disregard what you want to do or disregard what you want to say, and they're saying, no, 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 like, don't, it's not
Mm,
good for you. That doesn't mean it's not good for you. That's just someone that's just not maybe not where you're at. And that's
exactly.
okay. That's so okay. It's finding the right people around you that
Mm,
give you that courage and give you that confidence to step up, to step out, to say what it is that's on your mind. And that doesn't mean the people that are saying no are bad for you in inverted commas,
no.
but they're just not where you are. And again, that's so okay.
Yeah, exactly. And also has something to do with your ambitions too, like in where you want to go. And sometimes you have to be a little bit braver and take the different step and be out of that comfort zone that sometimes people will tend to, and it's okay to do that. So I think, yeah, like you said, I think knowing the individuality of each person and kind of understanding where everybody's at, it's so important.
Well, amazing things really do happen when you are outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I think it's a hard thing to do, but once you're out there, you look back and like, well, thank God I did it. And yeah, because in the moment it's very hard and it's very daunting, and sometimes you don't have the support of people. And but then when you look back and like, oh wow, yeah, if I would have stayed and would have accepted that, then probably I wouldn't be the person who I am today. So yeah.
In the moment, it's absolutely terrifying,
Yeah.
absolutely terrifying. But amazing things happen outside your comfort zone, and amazing things happen when you. It's not even facing your fears; it's just walking into your fears and just
Yeah.
owning them, even if inside you're freaking out in every capacity possible. Just being like, "I've got this," even if you
Yeah.
don't feel like you do.
Yeah. And you figure things out on the way, like along the way too. I think sometimes I think society tells us like we have to have this path, like you said, like it's not linear, right? But we've been like growing up, especially with the education system and stuff like that, where things are very black and white. And, if you do your exam, it has to be this answer or this answer. Even you see in certifications nowadays in my world as in sports performance, you see a lot of things that kind of tend to avoid that critical thinking about things. And actually, there's this way to do it, but if you can also assess the situation and be a little bit bold, and to do something different,
Mhm.
because that's where you're going to find out and be creative and develop as a person and practitioner too.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And then with all of this in mind, what is something in your career so far? Because, so far, it's still a very long time to go. But so far, what is something with stepping out your comfort zone, with facing your fears, what is something that you has happened to you in your career because of what you've done and an amazing thing has happened from it?
Um, well, I think that there's a there's a place that I was and institution that I was before, and I think there is a I think from my own personal development growth, I was in a place where I thought, like I said, I thought that I was about to quit, and I was just super unhappy just because I thought that I was the only female in a staff of 10 men, and I thought that, I was not being treated right, and it was a very defining moment where I was in the I was sitting with the technical director, and I was about to say I'm gonna quit. Um, and I was within my dream job. Like I was coaching Marta, who was a dream come true for me as a Brazilian player. I was at Orlando Pride, and it was a very hard kind of conversation. But then I was like, you know what? Let me sleep on it, and I'm gonna go back to you the next day because I thought in my inside, I thought, if I do something like this, I think this can be quite a defining moment for me in my career, that where I can find the confidence to actually be myself. And I remember the next day I came and I said, I'm gonna stay, I'm gonna push on. Because I think I need to learn as a practitioner how to be better and how to like put myself in a more confident way. And after that, I kind of removed my barriers as a practitioner because I remember I was like, there's the EV professional and the EV personal, and those worlds wouldn't interact. Even like with how I would deal with my players and even the buy-in from my players. But as soon as I removed that and I was kind of like, I'm actually this person and I can be quite I started quite being more vulnerable, more kind of being really my true self and showing up like I am. And all of a sudden, it's just like the entire confidence thing. It helped me so much because now I was not afraid of doing things. It was my first professional job in a full-time environment, and all of that. It really changed who I am as a practitioner in terms of the impact that I would bring to my players. And since then, all the institutions that I played, all the national teams and clubs and the connections that I have with players now, it's so different because I kind of able to see, what, I've been in your place. I know how it is. How about we do this? And instead of me just telling you what to do, why don't I empower then players to kind of really have that self-reflection to know what they want to do instead of just saying, I want you to do this. And as coaches, we do it all the time. It's like, I want you to do this way, this way, this way. So I think for me, for my own kind of philosophy as a coach and as a practitioner and as a human being, I think that really made me a little bit closer to the person that I was working with. And the impact of my work, I think, has been way more powerful than me just being a strength conditioning coach, just telling people what to do, or just kind of going through the motion sometimes, which is in auto like an autopilot, which happens a lot with because you do so much and sometimes you're like have so many roles that you have so many hats that you have to wear that you forget to kind of slow down and self-reflect. So I think, yeah, I think that definitely was a defining moment where I think a lot of young practitioners and even young players that the first kind of bump in their careers, they would say, "Oh, I think it's not right for me." But like you said, it's such a fine line where sometimes you have to push it a little bit more because you know that you have to go through that in order to actually be better. So yeah, so I think that moment for me, I won't ever forget. Because I was so close to do it, and I would not forgive myself to be quitting if I did it.
I found that really empowering, everything you just said. And I really liked when you used the phrase that you broke down your own barriers of the
Yeah.
difference between yourself and your personal world and then yourself and your work life.
Mm.
And once you started to show up more as your true self in not just personal, but work as well, how things started to change and how the magic started to happen because it's exactly that once you show up in the world as
Mm.
yourself,
Yeah.
In any situation.
Mm.
You show up in the world as yourself and the person that you know inside you really feel that you are, especially in work.
Yeah.
Things really do change, really. And I can't explain it
Mm.
because I
Hmm.
think it's a personal journey that anyone will
Yeah.
feel, and anyone that's
Yeah.
listening that understands it gets it. I can't
Hmm.
explain the feelings and the
Yeah.
thoughts, but you just feel it. You
Mm.
feel the difference. And when you start to show up as yourself,
Yeah.
again, it's like, whoa, who is this person?
I know. And that's part of your growth also, right? As a human. And I think that it's like I said, it's a hard thing to do, but once you do it, you look back and you're like, wow, yeah. And it just you're a little bit braver every time in all those situations because you've been there and and you start being a little bit clear on your boundaries too, because you're like, okay, this is what I believe, this is what's aligned, and maybe this place wouldn't be for me if it doesn't align. But even if it doesn't align, maybe I'll try a little bit more and try to stay a little bit more just to for me to deal with those challenges and see if I can grow more and more. And I think that constant look for growth and kind of almost not being obsessed, but like being so a little bit of obsession sometimes to actually keep growing because like I get very unmotivated if I'm in a place that I'm not actually being challenged and if everything is like nice and everyone says yes it's fine nobody challenges me then that's something wrong there and I always go like okay where's the tough times like I always because it's always been there and it's almost like and sometimes I'll be honest like that's something that I even talk with my therapist about it like I say sometimes like things are going so well and I feel guilty for actually being in the place that things are going well because in my back of my mind is like when the something is going to come and change that so which is something that we need to learn also to actually enjoy the process because sometimes we just like keep looking ahead and keep looking at things and we forget to actually be present and be enjoying where we are.
And you hit the nail on the head because as you do grow and as you do heal, as you get through a lot of things that are going on in your internal world, when good, amazing things start to happen, you start to get really confused and you
Yeah.
even question yourself and you do feel guilty and you actually might feel more negative things. And it's learning, it's learning to be okay and actually thrive in the good times. Because if you have had whatever it is, a lot of, or even not a lot, but you've had darkness surrounding you, you're not used to the light. And when the light starts to shine, it's like, what is going on? And it's a really interesting point because you actually have to you learn it,
Mm.
that it's to be okay when
Yeah.
good things are happening and to not look for the bad things
Yeah.
because that's you growing and healing and showing up more in yourself, and the things that are meant to be happening for you are starting to happen.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like we all been in football enough to know that some like it's the world of sports, I think, because it's so outcome based, so results oriented. Sometimes we forget that like things can change in 1 second. Like you can be in a place and then something happens, um, and that's why it's so important to actually enjoy the highs, but enjoy the lows too, because they will be the ones that define you at the end of the day. So I think that's why I've been in the autopilot because I've always, when you're in football, you're like up and down as a player, as a coach, or whoever, even if you're involved in any way in sport, you feel that. So I think that definitely not being used to feeling and kind of well feeling that you can actually enjoy the highs even if you see that the lows are coming very soon it's the way to go and it's hard it's a hard thing like I said but it's a process you just gotta keep learning with it.
Mhm, mhm. And then just before we wrap up, I want to ask, and I want to, mostly because you mentioned at the beginning about being a female in the industry, what advice would you give to, I mean, obviously there's, anyone is listening, but what advice would you give to a female in the industry that was in a place where you were a couple of years ago? I know, like we said, we're still on our journeys, but where you were a few years ago,
Yeah.
when you were breaking down, and maybe there was a point where, if there's somebody that doesn't know what to do, they don't see a way out, they're not sure how
Yeah.
it's going to get better, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is that support system. I think it's so important because when things were like that with me and I had to kind of be okay asking for help. And I think sometimes we try to move on with ourselves only, and sometimes we just need to be okay asking for help um and understand that whatever is happening, it just doesn't define you. And I think that when you're in sports and when you're in football, it's very easy to build your identity around it. And I think I built my identity around it. So when things collapsed, my entire world collapsed. So I think once you feel that those things in sports really affect you to the point that it's not healthy, that's when you kind of, as a person, you have to kind of go, okay, maybe I need to shift that around.
Mhm.
Can I do more around outside of football so can I, be surrounded by people that have no idea what football is. Sometimes you just go in dinners that people are not talking about football. And sometimes that's hard, like because we build that kind of we're surrounded by football, we're surrounded by the sport. But I think I remember when that happened, I started I'm like, I'm gonna try all different sports. So I started going to volleyball with people probably 20, 30 years older than me that have no idea what my world is in terms of being in football. I started practicing, padel, volleyball, tennis, all those kind of things to kind of remove myself from that. I wake up, I go to the club, I come back, I'm on social media trying to post things, and then I go again. So sometimes you have to kind of be a little bit more be proactive and go first. Can I build my identity not in football, but like football is a great part of my life, and it's without it, I probably wouldn't be here being in England or whatever, because football brought me to all those amazing places. But at the same time, now I'm a little bit healthier with that relationship with football. Again, it's a long way to go. I don't think I'm gonna get there. Nobody's gonna get there, right? But I feel a little bit more healthier in terms of that relationship with football because I know that right now, my first priority is my mental health. My second priority is my family and friends. My third priority is work. And it takes a lot of time to get there because, of course, you need to pay your bills. So you need to build yourself like a kind of a safe place and financially that you can kind of breathe for a little bit and then you can go, okay, work is great, but if I don't have my mental health first in place and my friends and family, then I'm not doing it right.
Mhm.
And then after that, that really helped me to be a better practitioner
Mhm.
because I was feeling more supported. I was feeling healthier. I was doing more things for me. So then I would feel better and being more creative to do my job. So yeah, so I think long answer for a short question, but I think that is it. I think it's building your identity outside of football and have a support system and not being afraid to talk to people that have been there and been through those dark places. They might not have the answers, but they will help you to kind of along the way. So I think that I try all my mentorships that I do with young coaches that just graduated. I try to kind of tell them about that, tell them about my story, tell them about, there's times that you're gonna feel like you're lost and stuff like that, but you need to see that light at the end of the tunnel, because you will get out there because it's I know we love the game and football is football, but it's just a game and it's at 11v11 on a pitch. The world will keep spinning if anything happens. So yeah, so that's what I would say.
Building a identity outside of the sport,
Yeah.
whoever you are in the sport, whether you're a player, a coach, you're a presenter, you a physio, whatever you are in the sport, And obviously for any sport, but building an identity away from it.
Yeah.
Maybe even go when you are out saying, I don't want to talk about football. Or if someone brings up football, you know what? Not right now. Can we talk about anything else? Because
Yeah.
yes, it's a hobby and a passion and a love for a lot of us, but also it is a job for a lot of
Yeah.
us as well. And
Yeah.
sometimes you actually need the break
Mhm.
of the job and just your life and building an identity away from it. Yeah, it definitely gives you the balance that a lot of us don't realize we actually need.
Yeah, and the boundaries, like that you said, you hit the nail there. Is the boundaries is actually people will respect you more when you put boundaries.
Mm,
Like I even a lot of dinners with my friends, I because all my friends are in the industry sometimes, I tell them, guys, we're not gonna talk about football today. Like we're not. And it's the best thing because then we're like, sometimes we're like, sometimes we always go back to and like no, let's go back, let's play that game, whoever loses, you have the next drink. So yeah, so I think it's just being okay putting boundaries, because not only with your friends but also with people in your work, like with working outside of hours. The
mhm.
reason that the system is like that because we accept it, so we respond to a 11 p.m. message about work. It can't wait, right? So people know that I am the worst in WhatsApp, and I put slow reply or sorry in my status, and people know because unfortunately, a lot of my work stuff in WhatsApp, and if I use it all the time, I'm gonna go crazy. So being okay to put boundaries, I think that's very important.
Mhm. I do it a lot of the time. I will sometimes someone brings up football and it's just not a football context at all, and I'm like, no, not
No.
today,
Yeah,
not because
it's so much.
because all of a sudden my brain went from wherever I currently am presently, which is nothing to do with probably what I'm, my job and everything, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking about the next Arsenal game, and it's like, no, wait, I don't want to right now. I actually just want to be me in wherever I am.
Yeah, exactly. And and sometimes it's hard because people go, how are you? How is work? Is the first thing that they ask you, right? It's like, no, how about how is my tennis life? How is my like work and playing a different sport? Or how's my dog? Yeah, and we're just defaulted by that sometimes, isn't it? And so we just need to change narrative every now and then.
Well, we can change the narrative in a lot of different things in life. We don't realize we actually have the power to change the narrative in every aspect of our lives. It's flipping the narrative of whatever it is that
Mm.
you're talking about or you're going through. Once you change the perspective, and that's not easy. You actually probably do need help a lot of the time
Yeah.
for people to help you see it in a different way.
Mhm.
But once you see something in a very different way that you are going through or talking about, once
Mm.
you change the narrative, it is amazing how much your mental health side of things and your
Um,
internal world can change once you see something differently.
Yeah. And sometimes you need people to help you see that, because a lot of times we, like I said, the bias don't let us see that. But yeah, 100%.
Mhm, mhm. Well, it's been amazing to talk to you today. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for inviting me to be part of it.